So tonight we are going to make our 35th project of this year, and that is Zinnia. And Zinnia was created by our Nicola, and in actual fact Nicola's doesn't look anything like that, which is interesting. So Nicola's, if I put it up to compare, if I can compare, let's see if I can hold it first, is this. And of course you can tell all around me we're celebrating autumn time, and I think you love the colours of autumn. I think we all do. I think especially this year the summer has been prolonged for so long that seeing the autumn colours kind of makes us feel kind of huggy, doesn't it? It makes us feel it's going to be all wrapped around us. And I wanted to break from that with my version of Nicola's project. There we go. Quite different, almost spring-like. I was kind of influenced by the red, thinking of a red rose for England, and I'm not excluding anybody anywhere in the world. It just so happens that's where I live. So it's kind of a bit of that, really. And just sort of putting a little bit of fun and, a little bit of fun in the prairie points here with ladybirds on. But we're going to follow the pattern exactly, so it doesn't matter what fabric you use. Go wild and wacky, go bright and zingy, go red, white and blue, go autumnal colours. I think whatever you choose is going to be perfect. And if you can, sew along. If you find this too difficult and you find it too frivolous, then please stop watching. Go and have a cup of tea, go and put the telly on, put your feet up, do what makes you happy, and then at some point you'll feel comfortable enough to come back and watch. I hope that's the case anyway. So tonight we'll carry on regardless, and we'll make Zinnia. So if we look straight away on the overhead, you can see the different ones that we've created here. You can see, and they were instigated by the new template, and I gave the template to the admin team and said, what can you do with it? What can you do with that template, which, as you know, it's sort of nothing like a leaf shape. But the girls didn't let me down. They wouldn't let me down, but they created the most wonderful designs, too good to put to one side and just to have as a kind of one-off view or a photograph here and there that you might spot on social media. So I thought it was really important that we acknowledge what the admin team have created for us, this being Nicola's. Last week it was Kath. And actually share that with you. I think first of all it was super for me because, you know, it was already done for me, but also it's super for everybody because you've got a lovely make here, and it's good. It's a good size. It's 8.5 inches square, 8.5 along here, 8.5 across there, and it's perfect for popping your cup of tea on. And there's my cup, which just happens to match the ladybirds, and I thought, how marvellous. So you can see it fits quite nicely on there, and obviously you can have a biscuit. And if you look at the Making It Monday page, Nicola has taken some pictures of hers, and we can see how she used them and how she's using them at home. We've done an easier back than Nicola. Nicola did the most beautiful hand stitching down here to seal her back, if you like. But I decided that you know, sometimes we need these quick projects. Sometimes hand stitching isn't for everybody. If you want to put a solid back on there, by all means do that. But I decided for the pattern to do almost like an envelope back as you would with a cushion, but you don't need that overlap. It's not a cushion. It's not going to take anything in there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful mat. The other thing, of course, is that if you put some thermolam in there, you could use it for your hot pans, because obviously it's a good size. So you can, you know, if you're taking something out of the microwave, or maybe you've had a saucepan boiling on the cooker, on the hob, then you could use this, as long as you're using the right things, to take the hot pan handle. So you're not going to have a burnt hand, basically. So it's multiple functional. Multiple functional. Yeah, that'll do. So there we are. So somebody's just said, where did I see that? Somebody said, oh, Angela said they look so different. Yes, they do, Angela. And this is what it's all about, isn't it? It's about digging in your stash, basically, because all we're using are squares, half square triangles, and the leaf shape, which is this shape here. Now, in the pattern, you have got the template. I always give you the template. It just makes it so much easier. There we go, it's down here. Oops, sorry, it's down here. So you've got that template. And as long as you print it out at print to fit, then your template will be the correct size. And even if it's just slightly out, it's not going to make any difference. It will just make your mat bigger or smaller. But I really wouldn't worry. If you print it correctly, fit to page, fit to printable area, 100%, you'll be fine. The other thing is I've put a little QR code there as well to help you navigate back to the website should you need to. So you've got everything on there that you need. It's a really good comprehensive pattern, which I'd like to think I might follow. I always say that, and I very rarely do. So you've got all the information on how to cut and what to cut. So that's your first little task. I'm going to put the instructions just over here by my laptop so I can see them at a glance. I'm going to try and make sure I don't drop anything here. The secret to making a lot of patchwork is, of course, you know, ironing. I'm not going to say pressing, I'm going to say ironing, because you see how I've just fitted that to that? I'm thinking that would fit perfectly. With patchwork, really you have to be quite accurate. It's ideal if you're accurate. So given that in mind, I've got all my pieces cut out here, and I'm going to lay them down. So these are my prairie points. Now, the one thing I would say to you is use your best press. I'm going to press these so we can see what they look like. Use your best press to do these folds, because they hold much better if they've got best press. They're a bit stiffer and not as floppy. And also I recommend that for all of your patchwork pieces as well. So if we were to, I'm going to put my pattern in front of me so I can follow it, because you know I can't remember everything off the top of my head. So I'm just going to put my iron on, because the first thing we really need to do is to put the stalk on. What I'm going to do is lay all these out as they should be. So let me just get my pieces. I'm sort of following the pattern here so I know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter how many autumn leaf templates or pieces that you make, it's good to refer to the original one. That way you won't go wrong. And it's also, you need to be aware of how to cut these leaves, because some of them you'll need to have the template the correct side up. So if I do it, let's have a look, let me do it that way. So this one, for instance, you can read all the words and you've got the right side of the fabric. With these ones, if you put right sides together of your 2.5 inch strips, you'll be able to cut this one the same way. So yeah, you just got to watch how you cut, but basically these are the same right sides together. So if I do that, you can see that that works, but this one needs to be cut individually. So if we lay these out, I'm just going to see if I can follow my pattern, because you think you've got it, and then when you look, It's not quite right. There we go. So that's what we're making up. But there's a sequence of events. And the first thing you're going to do is take your little strip here, the measurements are all in the pattern, and you're going to create, it's almost like you're creating a piece of applique. You're making a very small piece of binding. Now, because I have best pressed all of this fabric, it actually creases like a dream, which may or may not be what you want, depending on your project and depending if you want to see those crease marks, because they are stubborn. So just give that a really nice iron. You might find that the line stays there along the middle, but at the end, if we best press the whole thing, that line will come out. Okay, that line will come out. So I'm going to turn my iron down so it's always on duty. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch this into position there. And it's always good to put a pin in just to hold it fast. In fact, let me put it across. And the only thing I want to say to you about this is just to make sure that it does cover your points, this one and this one. If that one's slightly off, it will stay slightly off, and when you start stitching everything together, it will still stay off at an angle. I mean, it all depends on your seams as well and how you're stitching, but nevertheless, it's good to get it correct at the get-go. So just watch your points top and bottom. You can't see, but you can obviously judge where that corner is, top and bottom, and so we're going to stitch that on. That's the first thing we do. And if I follow the pattern, because it's important that I do this correctly with you, the next thing we're going to do is to make up this little block here. That's the first thing we do. So if I move all my bits and bobs to one side, we'll come back to those shortly, and we'll just bring the camera in here. Let's just make sure that I'm not too near. I don't think that's too bad. It's a little bit close up, but I think we'll be fine. And I've got my machine set on a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You don't need it for this because we're not doing a 1/4 inch seam. We're just doing a top stitch, but it's ready for the rest of my project. So I'll leave it as it is. And so you really just want to start as close as you can to the edge, and just go carefully and slowly. And if you're not confident in sewing a straight line, then draw your line first. There's nothing wrong with that, and follow the line. Now, because I've got this set on a 1/4 inch seam allowance, my stitching is for quilting. My stitch length is for quilting. So my stitch length has gone all the way down to 2, but actually I do recommend you have a longer stitch. So I would go up to a 3 normally. I didn't take that into consideration at all. So up to the top, and then what we've got is a beautiful, beautiful top stitched piece. You can see that centre crease, but I wouldn't, do you know what, I really, really, really wouldn't worry about that at all. So what you can do now is just to snip off your kind of dog ears, I suppose, and with any luck and the wind in the right direction, we've got those that corner just as we want it. There we go. So there we are, that's what we're looking at now. And that centre crease will come out. We're going to have a clatter in a minute because something's falling off my desk. So that's absolutely perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is to stitch the top left half square triangle onto the leaf design, and we're always going to stitch obviously right sides together. The great thing about the template or the paper pattern is that you've got your dog ears cut off, and you know it's going to be easy for you to follow a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So if something goes clatter, I do apologise, but something is literally hanging off the edge of my desk. I'm not going to get up and move it. I'm going to increase my stitch length to 2.6 and just, I mean, although it is patchwork, we'll be here all night if I stitched at 2. But that's what the machine recommends. Well, who am I to say anything different? So there's our 1/4 inch seam allowance there, and we're going to press that now. We're going to iron that back, not press, because press to me always means steam, but we're going to dry iron that back, and then we'll attach on our stalk like that afterwards. So let's just have a quick look on the overhead. So just keep referring back. I always keep my patchwork like this on this size mat, or I have got a bigger one, because the wool helps the pieces stay in place. So although I've got my iron on quite low, now I'm going to just push that one down, and you'll see in the pattern that I've actually been quite strict with myself with how I've pushed my pieces over, only because if you're using white fabric, you don't want those seams to show. With these sort of autumnal colours, really they're not going to show. But let's stick to the plan and just assume that this is a white, as I did with my pattern. So just press that seam out. Now if you wanted to, you could have that as an open seam. There's absolutely no reason why you have to have it pushed to one side. If you want to, you can have it open. I'm going to leave that for you to decide what's best for you. Some people like that, some people don't. So then what we're going to do is attach that bottom square. Now look, it's really important that you get that stalk going in the correct direction, and this is why I always lay it down so I can see what it looks like. So all we're going to do is right sides together again, and then we'll stitch that to each other, right sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Do a scant 1/4 inch. This should come out at 6.5 inches square, but it won't do if you've been a little bit too generous with your seams. So just so you know that, just give you a word of warning. So that's our first little bit done. That's what it should look like, and then you can press the seam to the correct position. Now with this, because we have this, let's call it applique here, there's a lot of fabric going on, so we're going to make sure that we push our seam up, okay, towards the leaf. So I'll do that, and then you can see what that looks like. And you're pushing it up so it's distributing that fabric beautifully. And now my iron's just that little bit hotter, I'll give that a press as well. Okay, so that's our first little bit done. If you want to trim anything, trim. You know, as you know, there's no real rules in this house. So there's our first little bit done. Now be careful, don't use steam, because if you use steam you could well distort your pieces. They will curve like bananas if you're not careful. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring these two pieces together. So again, you're putting right sides together, and you're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance from there up to there. And like I said before, that template is brilliant because it takes that sort of niggle away of having dog ears and wondering where on earth you start stitching. So again, we're just going down, and be careful you don't pull this, because all of this is on the bias. All of that seam there is on the bias, so do be careful that you're not pulling. Now look, I've just gone a little bit astray there, which is not ideal, but hopefully I can rectify that. It's all very well doing it in the comfort of your home with the peace and quiet and in relaxation. It's another thing to do it when there's people watching. So we're just going to press that seam out, and even if I do trim it, which I'm not too fussed about, we'll just make sure that we remember that that seam is a little bit scant. So again, we're just going to press that down. So I'm pretending that my yellow is a white, so I'm going to press it towards the leaf. Now if, for instance, you decide that this is the light colour, then obviously what you want to do is change that around. You know, don't just assume that that's what you have to do. I'm just following what I've done in the pattern, which is using obviously the whites, you can see. Now the only way of getting around that is if you had interfaced the white. So you could have put like a dressmaking lightweight iron-on stabilizer on that, and then if you did manage to put the seam towards the white, it wouldn't show because you will have stabilized it. So the next thing, we've got our two pieces there like that, you can just about see. The next thing we're going to do is bring these two together. Sorry about the aircraft. And then this then square will be attached to that square. Okay, so maybe if you've never done patchwork before, or anything that looks, perhaps this looks complicated, it literally is just straight lines. So we're going to stitch from there to there, and then we'll join that one to that one. So we'll just bring that in. And don't forget, as I said, we are working with bias seams, so don't pull any of it. Just let the machine grab it and take it through. And then all we're going to do then is just to press that open. And again, just assume that the yellow is the white. So if you put the yellow down on your mat and push away, then it'll all be in the right place. Just be careful with your pressing that you don't distort anything, that you try and keep your square a square. Okay, so put it back so you know where it should go. Let's try and get it so at least I know where it's going. Where is it going? That way. And then we're stitching that one to that one. Okay, nice and easy. And all of these should fit absolutely perfectly, as long as you've done just your 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's the main thing. It's one of those things where you can get away with a lot when you're doing other things. When it comes to things like patchwork, because there are so many seams normally, it's not very forgiving. It really isn't very forgiving. So there's our beautiful piece there, really lovely. So now we're going to press that. Okay, so don't forget, we don't really want it on the yellow, but it might dictate that it goes that way. But you decide whether you think that should go up like that or whether you're going to push it down. But again, I'm going to follow my pattern. The other thing you can do is to actually open this up. So your seam could be open. Let me show you that. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let's just pop these up a little bit. So this is the piece we've just created. So we could, if we wanted to, distribute the thickness of that fabric there by opening the seam up and pressing. And again, it's like everything in life, it's something that only you can decide what you're going to do. There's no right or wrong. In this instance, I'm going to press it like I did with the white. Now that wouldn't always be the best way, because you're folding all of this fabric over here, and you perhaps naturally want to push it away like that. But I want you to consider what colour fabrics you're using and whether that's appropriate, because if that was the white, it would show through. Okay, so you decide, but I'll stick to what I did, just so we're not deviating. And it should easily take it. We're only using quilting cotton. It's not like we're using heavyweight canvas or anything like that. So again, lay that down on your board, make sure that everything is lying how you want it to be. And now we're going to stitch this one to this one. So it's a very, very repetitive, very, very repetitive. Right sides together, and there is where you're going to stitch. And again, like I said, 1/4 inch seam allowance, nice scant So we're talking a thread width difference between a true 1/4 inch and a scant 1/4 inch. It makes a huge difference, because I would rather trim than not be correct. So there we are. So there's our piece. We now just need to press that, and then we can start thinking about how we're going to put it together. And all of this is covered in the pattern. It's a great little pattern, and thank you so much, Nicola, for the inspiration behind this. It really is absolutely super that the admin team got involved with making all these projects. So when you look at it now, you'll think, well, none of that looks like it's going to fit. That's not going to fit that, and that looks like it's too big for that. But by the time that we've stitched them together, everything is reduced. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to make sure I follow the pattern. So we're going to stitch these two together. So 1 and 2 get stitched together. This is number 3 in the pattern, and then we stitch that to that. I think that's pretty sort of clear, really. So right sides together, and then bring it up to your machine. Just wriggle it until all of your corners and your edges are all sitting beautifully on top of each other. I didn't check to see if the pattern was correctly positioned, but we'll soon find out when I take it out from under the needle. Because that's the other thing, isn't it? Making sure it's all positioned correctly. So there's our piece. Beautiful, really beautiful. Gorgeous colours, Nicola. I congratulate you. I really do. So obviously we need to press that. Make sure again that you're going to press it how you want it to be. So I'm thinking this is the majority of the lighter colour, so I will push that over to that side. There we go. And again, you see, whatever you do, you're going to be wrong, aren't you? Whatever you do, you're going to have this bulk of fabric. And that's why people open their seams, because then there isn't that sort of huge amounts of bulk. It's equally distributed. So I'm happy with that. And flip it over, give it a little iron on the top. There we go. It's funny how we always put our hand on it to feel the warmth. And now you can see that that fits pretty much accurately. I think I did a rather scant seam there. So what we're going to do now is just we're going to put those right sides together, and I'm going to trim that one anyway. Look, you can see it needs a bit of trimming. And we're going to stitch that 1/4 inch seam allowance right the way down. Just make sure that your raw edges are sitting beautifully on top of each other. And the thing about all of this is that, oh, I wonder if my bobbin's run out. I bet it has. Let me just have a little check. Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. It's just decided to do something. I don't know quite what. Let me just thread that back in again. Yeah, you must never think that what you've done is wrong. It's not. It's a variation on a theme. Always a variation on a theme. It doesn't have to be as somebody else has said. So there we are. So that's what it looks like, and I'm just going to trim that block just slightly. So if we have another little look at that and see how that's pressed. Now this is the interesting bit, because this time I'm going to press that seam down, and I'll show you why I've done that. Let's just press that down and just get that straightened out. I knew that was slightly twisted. So this seam is going down, that we've just done, this one here. Okay, because when we flip it over, this seam is going up. If you remember, we said that there's a lot of bulk going on here, so that piece of fabric, if you like, that patch has to go up because of all the amount of fabric. So consequently this one comes down, and that way you can nest. If you're keen on nesting, then that's where you're going to nest. So I'm just going to trim this up just slightly, just a slithe, just a little slithe there, just see if I can find all my gubbins and give that a little trim. So you can see it's not 100%. And there we go. So if you were watching a video of somebody else's, they would have fast forwarded that bit and edited it out. So there we are. So we're a little bit generous somewhere with some seams going on here, aren't we? Because this isn't sitting very well. But what we'll do is we'll trim that back to a 6.5 inch block. And I must admit, all the blocks I've done have been absolutely 100%. But you know, that's what happens. So the main thing for me is making sure that I nest my seams here at the bottom. So making sure that this sits beautifully on the top, which it will. And that's my main concern. The rest of it I can just trim down. I'm quite happy to do that. Quite happy. Let me take my mat off of there. That's the trouble with my machine. It's a fantastic machine for balancing things on. So all the way up, and hopefully we've nested those seams beautifully, and all the way along up to the top. There we go. Super job. And that has created our leaf block. Okay, and if any of you are in my gold members group, we've got a fantastic competition running to win really lots and lots of lovely prizes, and all you have to do is make that block up and perhaps just bind it. So Shirley's asking where the fabric is from. Well, if you're a gold member, Shirley, you'll know, because it's all in the patterns in the on the website, your gold patterns, and they're all from Oh So Sweet. They did this especially for me. So this time we're going to push the seams away like that. So I tend to sort of get hold of it, just slightly pull it. You're not tugging it, because don't forget there's lots of little pieces here, and that will all sit now beautifully when we come to put it together. There we go, beautiful, super. So I'm just going to square this all up now and get it into a 6.5 inch block, which is always super easy if you have a ruler that's 6.5 inches square. So we'll just line that up, and even if it doesn't come out at 6.5, which this is really weird, unless I did some really bad cutting earlier, which is more than possible. It matters not, because everything can be adjusted, everything. So I would just trim up these edges here, get them nice and neat, get some of the frayed edges off so it looks absolutely gorgeous, and there we are. We've got a beautiful leaf block, which is just gorgeous. So what we want to do now is to actually put our wadding on here, and I've got my back pieces ready to go, which we'll get in a sec, but now we need to put the wadding on the back. And if you wanted to, you could use 2 layers of wadding. But I'm just going to do one, a little bit of glue, just make sure I'm following the pattern, and just pop that inside. Obviously just make sure that your seams are lying straight. There we go, really lovely. So the next thing we're going to do is to put our prairie points on there. So if we bring in the mat, you can see how I made the prairie points. They're dead easy, and actually they're great for all sorts of projects that you might have. So some of them I've already done, some of them I need to do. So what I've got is 3 colours and 4 of each colour, so because we've got 4 sides to cover. And so, as I said, some of them are done, some of them I'm going to do. So nice square. Again, you can use your template. If you cut yourself a 2.5 inch strip, it's really, really, really easy to use the template if you cut yourself a strip. So you can see, because I've used Best Press, that is absolutely creased to perfection. The other thing I would suggest, I'm just looking for my tool, is to stop these pieces, for instance, in this corner here where you've got a couple of layers, just pop your stiletto down and it'll hold all the layers in place. Because oftentimes, I'll show you, if you fold once, you've made a lovely triangle, and you go to fold again, and this side is perfect. Can you see these might come out a little bit? So to stop that from happening, put something in there. I mean, ideally you could put a pin there, for instance. I mean, this is just being pedantic, right? This is just being pedantic. But keep all your layers there, and then fold this back. And make sure that all your corners touch and that your layers stay in place, because they'll want to move, because they're naughty little corners. So as I say, I tend to use my stiletto. If you haven't got one, just use a pin or a needle, something just to hold these two layers down, just there. That's where it wants to be naughty. Now, do you see how I've got my stiletto in there? And as I fold, can you see that all stays beautifully in place? Whereas it won't otherwise. So just get your iron in there and get them all pressed. And these will all press beautifully because they've had Best Press on them. They really will. And if let's see how that has come out. So just tell it who's boss. That's it. So get your tool in there, hold it down. It still wants to move, but we'll forgive it because that's already been ironed. Give them a really good press. Think about, I mean, I've used multicolours here. I've totally followed Nicola's pattern to 100%, whereas I went off pieced for the pattern itself because I wanted you to see it slightly different, just slightly different. So, and I know I'm doing this on top of each other, but that's no bad thing. So you can see by using the Best Press, it really has kept them in place. It really has. It's lovely. So now it's just a case of pinning these all down, and you really do need to do this, guys. You know, take the time. And this is what I was saying earlier about just spending a little bit of time for you. And I would follow the folds. So do you see where you've got the two open folds there? So pin this down, take it down to the corner and pop a pin in. Get your next colour, and I would move these around a little bit. I wouldn't have perhaps the same all the way around. You want the two folds facing the same way again. Can you see that? Okay, it's a bit dark in here. And then I layer that inside. I layer that inside. Okay, and you just want to make sure that it is sitting about so you've got a 1/4 inch overlap-ish. Just make sure that you've got that overlap. And then our third colour, which is the dark red, again, make sure this is open here, yeah? And then open this up and pop that inside. And make sure this one goes right up to the corner. So with a little bit of jiggery pokery and the wind in the right direction again, you're going to be right. Okay, so we're going to follow that rule all the way around. So maybe I'm going to just follow the design. I might as well. So keep those open and just match up those corners. And these are going to sit square. Can you see these are going to sit square to each other? So it doesn't matter what you've done in that corner, just make sure they're sitting fairly decently straight. And then the next one, again, open it up, make sure you got that right, enclose it in. And this is a slow job, but I do think it's worth the effort. That's got a little funny little cut there. Let's just get rid of that. There we go. So again, open it up and enclose it in, and just make sure that that goes up to the corner. And just fold those over. Now when you come to stitch this, we're going to stitch around 1/8 of an inch all the way around to hold all these points in place. And just make sure that you're following the line of the fold. So these folds go that way. If I was to go that way with my stitching, these will all pop up. I mean, that could be a bit better actually, but these could all pop up. So if you follow the direction of your folds, then they'll stay put, basically. They'll stay put. So just tuck that in, try and make sure that they're sitting fairly decently to each other. I mean, you really want a nice straight line here. That's the first thing you'll notice when you turn it through, if that isn't a straight line. So just keep on going all the way around. I might shift that one in a sec because that's not quite right. The one thing that has come out of this with the admin team having a little play with, you know, the template, is the sort of the variations of things that they've all come up with, and that has astounded me, because although obviously they're quite influenced by what I do, this time they didn't have any idea of what I was expecting or was wanting. All I said was, have a little go and see what you come up with. They were very brave. And I said to them, I'll be using it, no pressure, but I'll be using it to inspire others, because that for me is vital, 100% vital. And to see some of the designs they've come up with has absolutely blown me away. And of course, Nicola, her pouch pattern is in the, it comes with a template, and you can't get that anywhere else. It's completely exclusive. And what a fantastic opportunity for them. What a fantastic feeling for me, knowing that they've gone ahead, been very brave. I mean, they weren't asked to be a design team. They were asked if they could be an admin team to look after me, and they've done that in spades. So we're taking this to the machine now, and we're going to stitch, and we're going to follow the folds all the way around, and obviously you can adjust if you need to actually stitch these down beautifully. Take your time. There is no rush. And one of the things that has come out of this evening, and it's come out of the last few days, that you must take time for yourself. You must. Now, of course, I'm going to have to go that way if I'm going to follow my fold. So I'm going to actually, I never thought about that. I don't know if you can see that. I obviously want the work here to go on the left hand side of my machine, and in order for these folds to be correct, they need to be the other way round. So this needs to go in there. So the fold needs to, in fact, that's not even right either, is it? It needs to go, yeah, we can't do it that way. I'd have to fold it over like that, so the machine presser foot follows the folds. So don't do as I do, do as I say. In other words, think about the direction of your presser foot, and obviously your work being on the left hand side of your machine. I love that, love that. So we're going to do, I'm going to change from 1/4 inch because I don't need it anymore. And I'm just going to put my foot down, and we're going to just poodle along. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my corners here and put them over the top. Now obviously I've told you before to do something different. Well, this is what you must do if you've just done it the same as me. Use your stiletto like I'm doing. Use your stiletto to help you keep all those points in place because they will want to wriggle. There we go. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And just follow your instincts. Follow the lines of your lovely little triangles that you've created. Don't worry about what's going on underneath. If we're missing the mat underneath, that doesn't matter, because the next time when we do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we'll catch it, so it's no bother. So again, I'm lifting this one up and putting it over the top. I'm holding it with my stiletto. You could use the point of a lovely pair of embroidery scissors. Obviously be careful you don't catch it with the needle. You could use, gosh, a knitting needle if you want to, just to hold those corners in place. But you'll find if you follow the line, if you like, the folds, it'll behave itself. It'll work. You can see it'll work beautifully. So again, I'm just tucking that under with my stiletto, making sure it behaves. Take your time. Now, it wouldn't surprise me at all that our lovely Diana, who very, very, very often, like every week, stitches along with me, and if she got all her prairie points done ahead, she should be posting her picture as soon as this live has finished, and I rely on her to do that now. In fact, one of the admin team will always look out to see if Diana has done her project, and that's really lovely. It's lovely for me, and it's fantastic for the admin team. It's great for all the mimmers, because obviously it gives them inspiration and that little bit of a nudge. And of course you can do it. It might look really complicated, but you can see it's not. You can see how you can adjust things if you slightly go off piste, if your square isn't a square. And I never claim to be perfect, not by any long shot. Okay, so let's just trim our threads. So that's how it looks. Isn't that gorgeous? Those colours are just divine, aren't they? Really, really lovely. And interestingly, I want you to see, because I don't hide anything, we kind of nested it fairly well, but we still didn't get that stalk right in the centre, did we? It just shows, but you could draw on it and follow the seam. You know, you can follow your drawing. Diana says, yes, she did get them ready. I knew I could rely on her. Thank you, Diana. You're a star. So there we are. So you could check these points here. So you can check these corners here and make sure that they're sitting parallel, because, let me get mine, where is it? Because when you do, I'll just find that's one that's half decent. When you do open them up, do you see how they look? So if they're not quite right, then you'll see it. The other thing is, because we followed the open fold situation all the way around, you'll get opposites here and you'll get an open end here. But of course, you don't have to do what I've said. You can have it so they're both open here. I'm not sure it matters a jot, but obviously you can if you want to. Just make sure that you think about where those open folds should be. Okay, so things like that I'm not going to lose any sleep over. Okay, so this is our fabulous mat so far, but now we need to do the back. Now, I said to you that we're making a slightly different back to Nicola, because although Rhonda says nature isn't perfect either. Rhonda, I love you so much for saying that. We're going to make an envelope back only because it makes turning through super duper easy. But don't forget, we're not making a cushion. Well, you can make a cushion if you wanted a 6-inch square cushion. So you don't need to overlap them. That's what I'm trying to say, a huge amount. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring them up here just for a moment, because here's one of them. Okay, and all I've done is turned back just 1/4 inch. Now this is quite important, otherwise if you do 2 it won't be wide enough. Obviously if you don't want to have this raw edge here and that offends you, then if you fold it again and top stitch, which I would fully understand, you need to make this at least 4.5 inches wide. I think in the pattern I've said 4. But whatever I've said, add on another 1/2 inch or so. Okay, we can always trim back, which is what I like to do. But for this particular little mat, you have to remember we're only making a mat. I've just folded it over once, and all I'm going to do is top stitch all the way down. As close as I can. I'm just going to increase my stitch length to 3, otherwise we'll be here all night. And stitch as close as you can to the edge because it's neat. I'm using cream, of course I am, but you can use the correct colour for your fabric. But it would take me 10 minutes to change my thread, so I don't want you to be bored with that. Now that's a bit wiggly. Crikey! Teaches me for talking and sewing at the same time. Love it. Right, so there we are. That's what you're going to try and aim for. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them onto our mat. So don't forget, this is right sides together now. So obviously the sides that we've just stitched, our top stitching here is the right side. We don't want the raw edges on the right side, so we want to see our raw edges. Okay, now I know that my backing is bigger than my mat. Okay, that is deliberate, guys. That is deliberate. I always do that because it gives me a little bit of wriggle room, which I love. And all we're going to do is just place one on top of the other. And to be honest, all you're doing is placing it literally, do you see, like that. We are not making a cushion. So it doesn't need to have a massive fold over on the back here. Okay, it does not need it. So just a little bit like that is plenty. Nice and neat. However, like I said, for instance, if you were to make 4 of these and make this into a cushion, you obviously want to make this overhang, if you like, bigger. I can't give you the measurements because I'm not making that. So now you can see that it's bigger, and that's exactly how I wanted it to be. Because although this is absolutely perfect because we squared it off as best we could, this isn't, because I'm going to follow the edge of my wadding here, which is for me the correct bit. If you were to try to cut this and machine 2 seams and get that exactly the same size as that, you're a better person than me. And well done if you do. The other thing is, if you've got an overlocker, dust it off, get it out and use your overlocker. So with right sides together, use your 1/4 inch seam allowance again, because don't forget we've got those beautiful points underneath this and we don't want to spoil them. We want them to stay. And if you don't pin it, now I haven't pinned mine of course, if you don't pin it, it will shift. So do pin. And I'm just going to trust my luck. But you want your overhangs, your foldovers, if you like, to be the same top and bottom. So the same top and bottom. So I'll just make sure that they're sitting. I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm fine. We just have another little look. But yes, do pin it. I missed that bit out. Okay. Now the other thing I took into consideration is when you come to turn through, it's funny, I was watching somebody the other day and they were showing their perception of what you should do when you fold through a corner like this. Okay, now that is appropriate for some things, but it's not always appropriate for everything. Okay, So I'm just going to, in fact, I'm going to get my ruler and my rotary cutter. Because of the thickness of all the fabrics, that wouldn't work. And I'll show you in a sec what I mean. So when you hear certain ways of doing things, consider how it fits in with your project. I'm choosing my words carefully here. See how it fits in with your projects, okay? Okay, so we've trimmed that up beautifully now. So back and front, we have a lovely, messy, obviously it's wadding, it's picked everything up, but we've got a lovely, lovely little mat in there somewhere. So one of the suggestion was that you actually fold your corners in. So you fold them in on each other like so. So you put this seam over that and fold that back. Well, that's all very well and good as long as you've only got a couple of layers. And yes, you can fold that back. I'm only going to do it with one layer here. Fold this back, get your thumb in there, turn it through, and that will work. Obviously we can't because we've got all these layers. Don't forget all of that patchwork that we've got inside there. It's massive, huge amounts of layers. Now that looks quite a big seam there. Not happy with it, but we'll trim it back. I might adjust that later. So do take your corners off. In this instance, it's appropriate to take your corners off. Okay, can you see what that looks like? That's good. And then all you're going to do is turn it through. And by all means, pop your thumb into the corner and push through. You can never go wrong with that, even whatever you're making. Your pouch, pocket, whatever it is, a collar. You know, use your fingers and your thumbs because they are the softest part, if you see what I mean. They're not sharp like a tool would be. And just get these ears and pull them out a little bit. Do this manually before you even think about getting a tool in there to push that corner out. You shouldn't really need to. But just give them a little wriggle. They're like little dog ears. Can you see that? Little dog ears, they're lovely. And yeah, they should just pull out those corners beautifully. And there we have our beautiful mat. It's done. How easy was that? So from something that looked really super complicated, we've actually created something that's utterly beautiful, but also utterly easy as well. And then I think the last thing we should do is just give it a little press now, because first of all I want to get rid of that. You can't see it probably, but I've got a little line there. So I'm just going to bring my iron in. Now top tip, and another little top tip here, is when you come to press this, if you've used plain colours, every single line that you've got under here, like this, there's a seam under here, will show. Yeah, so you know when you've pressed trousers, you'll have that seam line and it goes silvery. The same will happen with your patchwork. Okay, now if you've used pattern fabrics, we've got a gorgeous grunge here, but even that would show. Press to the minimum. Okay, press to the minimum. We'll just turn this over and press there as well, which I shall do first, and just be gentle with it. It doesn't need a huge amount of pressing, but this is where a steam really does the job. And actually, do you see how lightly I'm pressing? And even though I'm using that best press, I'm just lightly going over it. And look how beautiful that looks. I'm really proud of that. And thank you so much to Nicola for her beautiful, beautiful pattern, which we've been able to follow all the way through. And that's not like a magic trick. I really did make that because we have Nicola's here. Look at that. How beautiful is that? How lovely was that hour? How lovely that we just lost ourselves there for 5 minutes, didn't we? I suspect you're all feeling a lot better in yourselves. And that's what it's all about. And there is the wacky version, which I thought was just fun. And why not? Why not? So those are our two designs. Let me try and get them the same. I hold them the same. There we go. And look how they're gorgeous they look against the backdrop there. So think about making 1 or 2 cushions maybe. Once you've made this block, perhaps even not with the points, you can join them together and make them into something like that. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the hour. I certainly have. It's been very good therapy. It's been lovely to be in your company again, and I really appreciate you all. I haven't looked at any of the comments, and that was deliberate. I wanted to keep on track, keep focused, and I'm really pleased we got it done in the hour. But I wish you all a very good night. I'm very happy to have had your company, and I'd like you to go and make one if you can. Just go and dig in your scraps, go have a dig around, get some bits and bobs out, and start doing a little bit of sewing just for you. Anyway, I will see all my lovely gold ladies on Thursday, and of course next Monday there won't be a Making It Monday live, but we will catch up, and if necessary I will do a pre-record, and then if you want to watch it you can, but I won't be here live. So, but I will be the next week, which will be fun. So in the meantime, I wish you a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute treat, and I bid you good night.